Hello, this is M. Adri, Assistant Professor of Microbiology from Government Degree College for Women Begumpur. Today's topic is fermented foods and their production. Now, in fermented foods, basically, what are fermented foods? Fermented foods means foods which are prepared by fermentation, which batter or flour which we keep it overnight or for some time to process the product, that is called as fermentation. Or fermentation is defined as it is an activity of microorganisms where it will break down the food particles and make it more softer. So in this fermented products list, first we have to study about the bread. Bread production and role of microbes in it. Bread we consume in daily life. In this bread production, usually we use flours and meals, and these flours are made from wheat or rye, and occasionally from maize or barley. So in bread production, we are using different grains for preparation of dough. They all are high in starch, and first two contain considerable proportion of protein, commonly designated as gluten. Okay, so whatever grain we are taking, they all are rich in starch, but wheat or rye, they are having high content of protein. So that protein is commonly designated as gluten. So this is the important word which we have remember in bread production. The protein part in the flour is called as gluten. Next, in addition, there are traces of sugar and some diastase enzyme. Apart from flour, we have to take some sugar for taste and also some enzyme called as diastase. This flour is mixed with water to form a dough. As we prepare for flour for dough for preparation of chapati at home. For bread also, we need to knead the dough. We have to mix it with water to form a dough. And for some types of bread, little sugar is also added. Sugar is optional, and a series of changes which occur in the flour and other constituents of the dough before baking into bread is termed pannary fermentation. Okay, so whatever changes which are occurring in the flour or the dough before before baking means we are adding some enzymes also into it, such as diastase, so that the diastase enzyme will act on the dough and make it more soft. So whatever changes which are occurring in the dough before baking, before keeping it in the oven, that the changes are called as pannary fermentation. Now, this is an alcoholic fermentation by yeast. It is an essential step in the production of bread. This process is known as the leavening of bread. A product of action of microorganisms is involved in the production of bread. So, here the bread we are studying under fermented foods, right? So, what type of fermentation is happening here? It is an alcoholic fermentation. What is called as alcoholic fermentation? In alcoholic fermentation, the sugars which are present in the flour will get converted or will be broken down, and they will be converted into alcohol, or alcohol will be released in the dough. So this fermentation, whatever is happening, the alcohol fermentation, which is carried out by yeast. Yeast is a eukaryotic organism, um, which helps in this fermentation of bread. So this is mainly responsible, yeast is mainly responsible for this alcohol fermentation. So due to this fermentation, there will be a raising of the bread, or some the, air spaces will be created, or raising of the bread will happen. This step is called as leavening of bread. Okay, so due to alcoholic fermentation, whatever changes occur in the dough, these changes are called as leavening of bread. A product of action of microorganisms is involved in the production of bread. So different microorganisms are helping in the process of changes in the production of bread. Coming to the types of bread. So till now we have understood that in the bread we need some flour of different grains. And the protein present in the bread is called as gluten. And then we are adding diastase enzyme and some sugar if required. And apart from this, yeast is also added here, which is responsible for alcohol fermentation in the bread, right? And we have also studied what is pannary fermentation. It is the changes which are occurring in the dough before baking. And we have seen leavening of bread. It is these are the changes incorporated due to alcohol fermentation, which is carried out by yeast. So these points we have studied what is in the general introduction of bread. Now let us study about types of bread. So in the types of bread, first one is white or common bread. In this white bread or common bread, the moistened flour is mixed with yeast, Saccharomyces cerevisiae, and is allowed to stand for several hours in a warm place. Okay, so at our home also, first we will knead the flour or dough, and then we will keep it for some time so that the dough can become soft. So same thing is applied for bread industry also, or bread making also. First the flour is moistened with water and yeast. Here Saccharomyces cerevisiae, that is yeast, is used, and it is allowed to stand for several hours, and it in a warm place, not in a cold place. It should be in a warm place so that the temperature should be optimum for the division of this yeast, and this yeast, so that this yeast can carry out some fermentation process in the dough. Flour itself contains little free sugar, but there are sufficient quantities of starch splitting enzymes in it to produce some sugar during the leavening process. So, how this definitely, whenever required, some sugar will be added, but before addition, also flour will be having some sugar content. How this sugar content is present in the flour? It is due to some enzymes which are present in the flour, which will carry out um, breaking of this starch, splitting of this starch, and some sugars will be released in the flour. So this will help in during leavening process. The sugar is rapidly fermented by the yeast with the production of alcohol and carbon dioxide, the later causing the rising of the bread. Okay, so what is happening here? Whatever sugar is present in the bread, it will be fermented by the yeast, right? We have added the yeast. There is a sugar naturally present in the flour, or it may be added from externally. So whatever the source is of the sugar is there, that sugar will be fermented by the yeast, and as a result of fermentation, alcohol and carbon dioxide will be produced. Alcohol and carbon dioxide, these are the important products, byproducts of this fermentation. Okay, so alcohol will give separate taste, and whatever this carbon dioxide is there, it is a gas, right? So this gas will be trapped in the dough. This trapping of gas in the dough will result in raising of the bread. It will result in the raising of the bread. During the baking process, the alcohol is driven off. So when we bake the bread, or we heat the dough, the alcohol which is there in the bread, it will be released off or driven off. Right. Next, In this first one is sour bread. Sour bread, this is made from sourdough, from which a starter is saved to inoculate the next batch. The organisms appear to be E. coli and Enterobacter species, which produce a mixed lactic acid fermentation that is accompanying the gas. There is always some lactic acid, which tends to make the bread taste sour. Sour means we can understand somewhat. It is not sweet. It is sour in nature. So this for this sorbet production, one of the important step is the starter dough will be saved for the next inoculation. Means every time we prepare a dough, in that dough starter which is taken from the previous batch. The dough, what is starter? It is the dough taken from the fermented dough taken from the previous batch, right? So this will be added to the next batch. That is the starter. And what are the organisms involved in this sorbet is they are E. coli and Enterobacter species. Now, why this sourness is coming? It is due to the production of lactic acid fermentation. Okay, so these organisms are helping in lactic acid fermentation, production of lactic acid by fermentation, accompanying the gas. Here, carbon dioxide is also produced. So there is always some lactic acid which tends to make the bread taste sour. So main point here, what we have to remember is in sour bread, what are the organisms involved? E. coli and Enterobacter species. What kind of fermentation? Lactic acid fermentation. What is responsible for sourness of bread? It is lactic acid, and definitely every time starter bread or starter dough will be taken for next batch. Next, salt rising bread. So this type of bread is dependent upon the spontaneous fermentation, probably by wild yeast and common containing contaminating bacteria, E. coli and Enterobacter types. So this is done by spontaneous fermentation. Some spontaneous means we are not adding any extra organism. Um, they are it is done by common contaminating microorganisms such as E. coli or Enterobacter species. And in this case, salt is added to the bread, which cuts down some of the extraneous contamination and allows the to rise during fermentation. So, as the name is suggesting, salt rising bread. Here, definitely we are adding some salt to the dough, and addition of salt is removing some of the contamination. But even then, some organisms such as E. coli, Enterobacter, or some of the yeast, they can contaminate this dough, and it will help in rising of the bread. That is why the name salt rising bread. Next is abnormal fermentation of bread. Abnormal means this is not normal or this is not desirable. Undesirable, high acidity. Okay, too high acidity may develop as a result of growth of lactic bacteria for too long period in the dough before baking, and the bread thus becomes unpalatable as a result of development of sourness in it. Okay, so in this step, this is not desirable change which we require in the bread production, but this happens sometimes due to keeping the dough for a longer time, and it is maybe due to growth of lactic acid producing bacteria, or more lactic acid may accumulate in the dough, making the dough more sour. So when the bread is produced from such a dough which is kept for longer periods and which more lactic acid has been produced, so such a bread product will be sour in nature, and usually it is not palatable, or we can't eat such kind of bread. And so we are studying about what are the undesirable changes in the bread or abnormal fermentation. So first one we have seen high acidity due to production of lactic acid, and the second one is ropiness. Ropiness results from the growth of spore producing bacteria after baking. Okay, so here ropiness means when you take the bread, when you remove one of the, when you break the bread, this bread will be, it will show some ropes in between, stickiness and ropiness will be there. It is usually due to production of some bacteria which are spore producing bacteria. Okay, so why we are calling them as spore producing bacteria is, during baking process, right, some heat will be there, more than 100 degrees temperature will be given for the, for baking, right? So during that baking process, some of the microorganisms will resist that temperature. Okay, so which bacteria can resist? Only those bacteria which are able to produce spores will only resist that particular temperature. So what happens after baking? The bread, the temperature will come down. The bread will be kept at a room temperature definitely. So in that temperature, after baking, when it returns to the normal conditions, the spores will germinate, right? Spores will germinate and they will contaminate and they will grow and they will produce some undesirable changes in the bread. Here main bacillus species have been seen as a spore producing microbes in this bread production. They are probably present in most bread but do not develop and cause ropiness. And there has been too little development of acid in the leavening process, and the bread has been sorted at a relatively high temperature. So, if we take some precautions, this ropiness can be avoided. In other words, in order to prevent rapid deterioration of the bread after baking, it is necessary that a certain amount of acid be present in the dough. This is usually formed as a result of growth of certain lactic acid species. So, this importance of lactic acid in the bread is can be understood here by this point. Okay, so once some of the lactic acid is left in the bread, mm, this lactic acid will lower the pH of the bread, which will not favor the growth of certain microorganisms, for example bacillus species. Okay, so presence of some lactic acid in the bread after fermentation is also required to avoid some unwanted growth of microorganisms. Next one is bloody bread. Here, bloody bread means some bacteria may form colored spots or areas in the bread. So, it is usually done by Serratia marcescens, sometimes termed as Bacillus prodigiosus. Okay, so this produces a red pigment. So, these red spots were interpreted before the development of modern science as spots of blood, hence the name bloody bread. Okay, so this is one of the another abnormality which we can see in bread production. Okay, so sometimes what happens after baking, after some time we can see some red spots in the bread. Okay, so these red spots are formed by the microorganism Serratia marcescens. Okay, Serratia marcescens. Another name for this organism is Bacillus prodigiosus. Right. So, what is the importance of the Serratia marcescens? Is it is able to produce some red pigment. Okay. The important point here you have to remember is Serratia marcescens is producing some red pigment in the bread. Right. So before advent of before idea of microorganisms, people used to think that it is due to blood, and that is why the name bloody bread. But it is due to microorganism, that is Serratia marcescens, which is able to produce some red pigment in the blood. That is why the name bloody bread. Now we have seen what is bread, how it is produced, general introduction of bread. We have seen types of bread, right? And then we have seen abnormalities in the bread production, sour bread or bloody bread, etc. And ropiness we have seen. Now we let us try to study about steps in bread production. What are the different steps, right? The following points summarize the production of bread. keep everything warm during fermentation. Yeast requires warmth so that fermentation may take place. Okay. As we have discussed in the bread, what all contents we need to add? We need to add some sugar if required. Then we need to add some salt, and then yeast is required here. Some diastase enzyme is also required. So whatever we are adding, we have to maintain. As we are adding yeast to this dough or the flour, we need to maintain some warm conditions. Okay, so that yeast may divide and carry out fermentation. Mixed to soft dough, some flours are made up more absorbent than others and require more liquid. Dough must be elastic. If it is too dry, it becomes hard and not elastic in nature. So, when first step is mixing of the flour with water and to make it a dough. So, mixing of this dough or water content in the dough, it should be as such that the dough should be elastic in nature, not more dry. Knead the dough thoroughly to distribute yeast throughout the dough. So kneading or pressing it or mixing it is more important so that yeast can be distributed evenly throughout the dough, so that that air spaces or we can see or bread will be evenly produced. Place the dough in a warm place to rise until twice its original size. In the presence of moisture, sugar, and warmth, fermentation takes place and the gas produced expands, causing the bread to rise. Now we have um, prepared the dough, adding all the contents, right? Now, after preparation of dough, we have to keep the dough in the warm place so that the dough can rise in nature. Okay, so this rising of the dough or leavening of the dough is due to, as we have discussed in the previous slides, it is due to production of carbon dioxide by yeast. Okay, so yeast will be carrying out the fermentation. It will be producing some ethanol as well as carbon dioxide. Ethanol will be left over, but carbon dioxide will help in raising of the. It will, as it will be trapped inside the dough. It will help in raising of the dough. Okay, so how to what extent the dough should raise? At least to double the size, whatever the original size may be, it should increase double in size. Knead lightly the second time to expel the gas which escapes as the dough collapses, and to reduce the volume of this dough and yield a dough of a closer texture. Now, after once the dough rises due to production of carbon dioxide, again the dough should be kneaded or mixed so that some of the carbon dioxide which is trapped inside the dough may be released and we can get a bread of closer texture. Next is allow to rise or brew a second time to continue the action of fermentation which has been retarded by the kneading. So by kneading, some of the gas has been released. So second time, for the second time again we have to keep it for fermentation. We have to check whether fermentation is still happening or not. Then do not overbrew. The gas may expand until they break through the dough, which collapse and cause a heavy loaf that is sour in flavor. So if you keep for more time, more than required, more than recommended time, it may again cause soreness in the dough. Place in very hot oven. So at what temperature we have to bake this bread? It at about 235 degrees centigrade in the oven. This will kill the yeast and stop the bread from continuing to rise. So at this temperature, the yeast will be definitely killed and the fermentation will stop. It will enable the starch to gelatinize and proteins to coagulate, giving a stable structure to the loaf or rolls. So, when it is baked at this high temperature, what is happening to the starch or protein? Starch is getting gelatinizing, right? It will become sticky and proteins will coagulate, which will means entire thing will be cooked very nicely, giving the loaf or bread required is texture, nice texture to the or stable structure to the bread. Now reduce the heat after the roll or load is set so that the loaf cooks through thoroughly to the center without burning. Now, after a certain time, the temperature has to come down so that loaf can be cooked thoroughly from the inner side or from the center without burning. Cooked bread should sound hollow when tapped at the bottom. So, how to identify whether a bread has been cooked or not? When you tap at the bottom, it should give hollow sound because due to gas production, inside some spaces, air spaces will be made in the bread. So this is one of the trick to identify whether the bread is cooked or not. When you tap, it should give some hollow sound. So these are the steps of bread production. First is mixing of flour with a weighing of first is a weighing of ingredients. We have calculations for how much flour, how much yeast we need to add, how much sugar we need to add, salt, etc. So everything must be weighed in an appropriate manner, and then we have to mix them uniformly. After mixing, we have to go for kneading step. Kneading means we have to add water, and we have to mix it into uniform mixture, and then sealing and molding. After kneading, we have to seal the dough, and we have to give it a shape, and then we have to go for panning. We have to keep it in the shelves for a certain time, and then proofing it will be for 3 hours, and then here the fermentation will occur. Okay, and then after this we have to go for baking, which is at 180 to 220 degrees for 25 to 30 minutes, and then we have to cool the product better. Here bread will be produced in the last step. So these are the different steps. So while writing fermented answer for fermented products, that is for bread, definitely this flow chart must be written. So we have seen all these things. What are the different ingredients? Yeast, salt, mm, this everything is done. Here, different steps are there: mixing, fermentation, kneading, molding into loaf, rising, baking, and cooling. Again, this is the same thing, and these are the steps. If we first, after writing the definition, if you can write these steps for bread production, that will be sufficient. So, first, mixing will help in mix the contents evenly, and then fermentation will happen. Once dough is prepared, it has to be left for fermenting. Then rising will happen due to trapping of gas bubbles. All these points we have seen in the previous slides, but this is the overview of bread production. The loaf is then placed in a preheated oven to bake, and then loaf is cooled. So this was about bread production. Hope you all have understood very well, and the presentation must be in a very neat manner. Okay, coming to the second product, that is cheese. Here cheese is made of a protein called as casein. Okay, so varieties of cheeses are differentiated according to their flavor, texture, type of milk. Okay, so what is basically a cheese? Right, in day-to-day life we use cheese in pizza making, and paneer we have seen. So all these comes under, there are many types of cheeses. So these are the best two examples: mozzarella cheese and many more cheeses we have seen. So all this cottage cheese means paneer, right? So these are cheese. So they have from what they are made of, they are made of milk, right? And we can give different flavor to this cheese and different texture also, right? What all we need to add here? Salts and seasoning is added. Salt is added and other seasoning, some spices can also be added. Type of bacteria and mold species in used in ripening. So here you can see different types are there. So how these different cheeses are being produced, it depends on the type of inoculum or type of bacteria or fungi which you use in ripening or fermentation process, and manufacturing and processing method also result in different types of cheeses. So first let us understand the classification of cheese. Here it is of three types: hard, semi hard, and soft. Okay, hard cheese, it is again of two types: bacterial ripening and mold. Means bacterial cheese is cheddar cheese, and fungal cheese is stilton. And semi hard cheese again two types: bacteria and mold, Gouda, Edam, and Roquefort cheese for fungal. And the soft is of three types: bacterial, mold, and unripened cheese. Here, bacterial ripened means Limburger, and mold ripening Camembert, and unripened means cottage cheese. So these are basically different types of cheeses. This hard, semi-hard, this shows the texture of the cheese, and these are the microorganisms which are making this fermentation process, and these are the examples of different cheeses, right? Now coming to the production of cheese. Here first we have to see curd formation. First we have to take the pasteurized milk, right? And then we have to go for curd formation. Curd, we know very well, this milk, pasteurized milk, is brought to temperature of 31 degrees centigrade, and a starter and required coloring matter is added. What is starter? Definitely lactobacillus or any other bacteria which can which can curdle the milk, right? And any other flavoring agent can be flavoring agent or coloring agent can be added at this step. After 30 minutes, renin is added and stirred and allowed to set the curd. Renin is added, right? See, curd formation after that, cheddaring, right? Curd cutting into small cubes. We have to cut this curd into cubes, and we have to heat them at 38 degrees for 45 minutes, and then curd is stirred to prevent matting. Okay, so we have to use, after cooking, we have to mix it uniformly, and the whey is drained off and curd is allowed to mat. Whey means whatever liquid is coming out after the curd formation, the solid matters in the milk will separate and the liquid will separate. So that liquid part which is getting separated from the curd is called as whey. Next step is cheddaring. Here, cutting matted curd into blocks, turning them at 15 minutes interval, and then piling. It is then passed to curd mill, which cuts the slab into strips. Cheddaring means we are cutting the blocks and we are turning them at 15 minutes interval, and then piling. We have to keep them in one above the other, and then pass it to curd mill, which cuts the slab into strips. So after cutting will be there, salting the curd to draw out the whey from curd, and as preservative. We have to add the salt at this step to remove excess water or excess whey, and this also acts as a salt will also acts as a preservative by removing the contamination or not allowing the unwanted microorganisms to grow by changing the pH of the product, and then pressing it is done overnight. Okay, so here this is the flow chart. First we have to take the pasteurized milk, we have to go for curd formation by adding some starter culture, and then cheddaring. We have to cut the curd, and we have to keep it one above the other, and then milling and salting. We have to add the salt, and then pressing and molding overnight, and maturation, curing, ripening, and aging based on the age also. There are different types of cheeses. So as we have seen in the first slide of cheese, there are different types, right? Soft, unripened. Here we have seen like hard, semi-hard, and soft. So here, this table, we can see different microorganisms involved in a particular type of cheese. Here, soft, unripened cheese. First one is cottage cheese. This is basically paneer which we use, Lactococcus lactis and Leuconostoc citrovorum microorganisms are involved here. Next is cream. Here, Streptococcus cremoris, Neufchatel, Streptococcus diacetyl-lactis, and soft ripened. Uh, 1 to 5 months ripening is there for here. We have to keep the cheese for ripening for 1 to 5 months. Here, different types are bray. Here, microbes are Lactococcus lactis, Penicillium candidum, Streptococcus cremoris, Penicillium camembert, Brevibacterium license. And next is camembert. Here, Lactococcus lactis, Streptococcus cremoris, Penicillium candidum, Penicillium camembert, and Limburger cheese. This is famous cheese. Here, Lactobacillus Lactococcus lactis, Brevibacterium linens, and Streptococcus cremoris are involved. And coming to the semi soft ripened, which is for 1 to 12 months, means up to 1 year we are making this cheese to undergo ripen. And here blue cheese is there, first category. Here, these are the microorganisms involved, and then next is brick cheese. These are the examples for this type of cheese. This is gorgonzola. These are the microorganisms. Monterey, Lactococcus and Streptococcus species are there. Munster, Lactococcus, Brevibacterium, and Streptococcus are involved here. Roquefort cheese. Here, Lactococcus, Penicillium, Streptococcus, Penicillium are involved in this. And these are the hard ripened cheese which are ripened for 3 to 12 months. And these are the microorganisms involved here. This is the Swiss cheese. This is the hard ripened cheese and very hard ripened. Last one, last category, that is parmesan. These are the microorganisms involved. You can remember a few categories of examples. It is not necessary to remember each and every example in this table for examination point of view. And coming to the secondary microbes. So whatever organisms we have seen in the table, they are the primary microbes are mainly responsible, and there are secondary microbes also, such as Propionibacterium frederici and Shermani, white molds, green molds. They are also helping in a ripening of the white cheese. They are helping in ripening of the cheese, and the ripening adjuncts, bacteria or yeast cultures are added during ripening. The attenuated cultures which are not intended to grow but only contribute to their enzymes. Such microorganisms are also added during cheese production. So in the cheese, these large holes are produced by Propionibacterium frutendricci, and the white molds used are Penicillium species, and blue or green molds are Penicillium roqueforti or Penicillium glaucum, and the ripening adjuncts are bacteria or yeast cultures are added which help in ripening of the cheese. And the next is attenuated cultures. Here attenuated means aged cultures. These cells or organisms, microbes or attenuated cultures, they do not grow in the cheese but they only add their enzymes to the cheese. So these are, there are different microorganisms which are giving or playing a major role or different role in this cheese production. For example, Propionibacterium shermani. It is known for flavor and eye formation or holes in the cheese. This is a Swiss cheese family, and these organisms, Lactobacillus species, they are responsible for acid and flavor production. Examples are yogurt, Swiss, and Italian cheeses. Lactobacillus acidophilus definitely produce acid. Here, product is acidophilus buttermilk, and Streptococcus thermophilus is producing acid. These are the examples, and likewise, these organisms are producing acid and flavor, and these are the products which are being produced. And here you can see different steps in the cheese production. This is the raw milk, right? After taking raw milk, first it has to undergo pasteurization so that unwanted microorganisms can be killed here and the milk can be stable. And then we have to go for standardization and filtration. If any unwanted solid materials are there, that can be removed. And here, after fermentation, this is the actual vessel where coagulation or curdling step is happening. From this container we are pouring milk, and from this fermenting microorganisms are inoculated into this coagulation tray, and as a result curd will be produced, and whey will be separated. Whey can be separated here. Here cutting can be done by separating the liquid, and stirring and cooking will be done. After this, the whey is separated, draining of the whey is done, and curd will be left out here. It has to be milled, means uniformly it has to be mixed, or cutting will be done, and then salt will be added at this step, resulting in fresh cheese, that is cottage and cream cheese. Fresh cheese will be produced here. Again, it has to add it into molds, or to give some shape, and then it has to undergo pressing so that extra whey can be removed. After pressing, it has to be kept for ripening. So this ripening is the important step in cheese production, which decides the uh, quality or type of cheese, and as well as quality of the cheese also. So the more ripened cheese, the cost will be more, and flavor will also be more. So these are the general steps. This flow chart is better for depiction in exam. We need not draw all the vessels and all, but you can make a simple flow chart by taking these words: raw material, then pasteurization, then standardization, filtration, and then you can show this by simple diagram, and then you have to continue here. So flowcharts are compulsory for fermented food production. Coming to the last step, that is ripening, which is more important in this cheese production. 60 days to 12 months. 60 days means 2 months to 12 months. Ripening can be done depending on the flavor required, what flavor you want in the cheese. So this will decide how much time you have to keep it for ripening under controlled conditions. Definitely, there should not be any contamination during this ripening, and this ripening is done at a particular temperature and humidity. Changes from a bland, tough, rubbery mass to a full flavored, soft product. So during this ripening, what happens is um, the tough mass will become soft mass, and renin splits protein into peptones and peptides. So during this cheese production, as we are adding renin, so it will break down the protein into peptones and peptides, and B vitamins will be improved in during this ripening, and improves cooking quality. So cheese has limited keeping quality and requires refrigeration, should be kept cold and dry, wrapped in wax paper or metal foil. So this cheese is um, this cheese, as it is made of milk, and it is more prone for contamination. We can't keep it at room temperature. Definitely, it requires the refrigeration, and it should be wrapped in a wax paper or a metal foil. And these are the health benefits. It contains calcium, protein, phosphorus, zinc, etc. And it is and if you are lactose intolerant, many cheese um, are often many cheese such as cheddar or Swiss cheese, they won't have lactose, so they can be tolerated by our body. So these are the fermented products, that is bread and cheese. There is one more fermented product, that is yogurt. Um, as the video is getting longer, we can continue this in next video. Thank you for patience listening. Hope you understood all the steps which are required for fermented food production, that is bread and cheese. Thank you all.